Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are
For
you?
having me. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Guys, if you have not followed me or if this is your first time following me on my new show, obviously we bring the most interesting people to you. And of course, this has been a friend, I should say colleague, as you know, in extracurricular activities, NAACP. I should say, man, I've got the chance to meet uh, Dr. Shurita Thomas Tate years ago, and she is the truth. So you're going to hear the truth tonight, okay? When the world gets a chance to meet this woman, if you haven't already, just trust me when I tell you, you're going to like her and you're going to want to enjoy and engage yourself with her. So, of course, Dr. Tate, what's been going on? Just kind of before we go any further, because I'm going to give a big introduction with your accolades here in a minute.
Well,
But
you
just
know,
what's been,
we're in a strange time right now. It's been a heavy couple of months
uh,
between COVID and now with the racial unrest in our country. We just have a lot
yes.
going on, and it weighs really heavy on me. And so I've been struggling a little bit, but I told some friends just today that I've spent the last day or two kind of renewing my mind and rejuvenating my heart and my body so that I can stand up and fight another day.
Amen, amen. Well, you know, the civil rights movement, that was pretty much a regular, that was a regular thing. I was talking to my uncle, uh, via text the other day, and he was trying to just give me some ideas of things that they did. And it was not, how would I say, it was a non-stop movement that just continued and continued and continued. And I think one of the things that I got out of that text was, you have to learn how to adapt. And I think that's where we are right now. We are trying to learn how to adapt to the new normal with the COVID-19. We're trying to adapt to the fact that, wait a minute, things that were going on years ago with the killing of black men is going on today. And it
Right.
just is a just big question mark
Yeah.
that's just sitting over us. And so everyone's trying to find out how they can answer it.
Right.
But of course, with that being said, I get it. I get it. And this is the time to vent. This is a really good time to vent. Can you just kind of tell me? I mean, and we're going to talk about a lot of things, but what's really been on your heart, that we can talk about tonight that I want to add in?
What's on my heart is I carry a burden uh,
Hmm.
in my heart for our community
Hmm.
in general. Um, but I mean, it goes along with who I am. I carry a huge burden for our children,
Right.
and so that's kind of been weighing on me. I don't have children of my own, but I
Hmm.
I I love on lots of kids in the community, and I have a niece and a nephew that I love dearly, and thinking about their future weighs really heavy on me. And so that's really what's been weighing on me lately.
We're going
I
to
want
talk.
for I want for our kids to have a future in this country that respects them, that has dignity, that they can have dignity about. Um,
Mhm.
and I feel like right now we don't live in that space, and we're not creating that for our children, and that upsets me.
Right. And I think we're on the same page. I mean, I had a personal testimony just last week talking with my son, having a talk with him that I didn't think he's 10 years old. And I didn't think I was going to have this talk with him until obviously he was 15 or 16 and getting into that age of driving and all the above. And so it just came down to the point where he said to me openly, he said, Dad, I'm afraid to go outside. I'm afraid that I'm going to be shot and killed. And so that was one of the things that really put things back to perspective in all in all. So guys, hey, you listen, you're joining in. I see a couple people joining to our live feed. If you want to actually listen in and come directly to Live with Brotha Maze, uh, the Facebook page, or you can go directly to my page, which is of course uh, Facebook, and then just go slash Marlon Re'Sean Graves. It might come up as Brotha Maze, but I've seen it go both ways. But I'm going to introduce this special lady to you. This is probably one of the most interesting people that I have met in the latter few years. But at the end of the day, when you meet special people, and as I've always said, I like to exploit the people that make me kind of twitch my eye and go, wow, life, you know. But here it is. Originally from Portland, Oregon, Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate is an associate professor at Missouri State University in the Department of Communications, Sciences, and Disorders. She's earned a bachelor's degree from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and master's and doctoral degrees from the Ohio
The
State.
Ohio State.
Yeah, I get it. The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. A strong leader and notable expert in child language and literacy and cultural and linguistic, because I'm gonna say this right, linguistic diversity in schools. Dr. Thomas-Tate has partnered with schools and communities across the United States. She has published and presented her research both nationally and internationally. Furthermore, she is regularly called upon for her expertise to serve as a reviewer for research journals and conferences. Her passion for youth and commitment to community drives her involvement in numerous organizations, activities, and events. She volunteers in multiple roles to facilitate social justice and equity for underserved communities, focusing on civil, social, and civic issues such as illiteracy, low literacy, educational achievement gaps, homelessness, foster care, and poverty. Dr. Thomas-Tate has served in multiple capacities with the Springfield branch of the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, better known as NAACP, including board member, treasurer, education chair, and youth chapter advisor. In 2014, and we'll get into this a lot more later, but 2014, she developed and established Ujima, Language and Literacy Program, a community-based model and program designed to educate, connect, and empower children and families. During her almost 9 years here in the Springfield area, Shurita has proven to be a community leader, committed to students and education. And of course, in 2019, Dr. Thomas-Tate ran for a seat in the Springfield, Missouri R12 Board of Education School District. Narrowly defeated by incumbents, Dr. Thomas-Tate was appointed to the board in April 2020. And I personally want to say congratulations. I said this to you on Facebook, and I was so proud of you because this is a first. Am I correct for African American woman?
No, we've had a couple in Springfield. It's been a while, but both Charlotte Harden has been on the
there you go,
and Francine Pratt.
That is correct. That is correct. And I apologize because Francine Pratt, obviously wife of Wes Pratt, and I should say he's the husband of her because they just as equal and when it comes down to it, and he's a good friend of the family. And then Charlotte Harden, I remember leaving college and she was already involved in an administrator role. Oh man, this was years ago. She was an administrator role there at Missouri State University.
Both of them are extraordinary women who paved the way for me and who have been huge supporters of mine, and I appreciate them.
Yes, they have. And hopefully I can get them both on the show here when time allows. So with that being said, let's just start. Who is Dr. Shurita Tate Thomas?
That is a
Thomas Tate. I'm saying that right. Thomas Tate, excuse me.
People get them confused all the time. It's okay. That's a loaded question. I wrote down a few things here. I didn't want to, sound all off the wall, but I'll start by saying that I'm a daughter and I'm a granddaughter. I'm a sister. I'm a niece. I'm an auntie. And I'm a friend and a colleague. And so I see myself as meeting the needs of lots of people, connecting with lots of people. I have a strong faith. I am a community activist. I'm an educator and a speech language pathologist.
And here's the most interesting thing. And when you said that, I didn't know about the speech pathology until we were sitting down one night and right there on Commercial Street. I'm thinking my brother's little club there, the Q, is that what they call it?
Yeah.
And okay, yeah. So we were sitting there, we was listening to some jazz music, and I overheard the conversation, and someone said something about your pathology background. I was like, excuse me? I didn't know that. So it made me start doing more research, and I said, wow. And I've always wondered, I said, what type of career will make someone want to go into that? So kind of start, was this something back when you was a child, or did this happen over time?
So I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and I went to a a magnet high school, Benson High School. And at this high school, it was kind of, it merged between an all-boys school and an all-girls school. The boys' school was an engineering kind of technical school, and the girls' school was a nursing school. They merged, and it was a magnet school, so students chose a major. And my major was health occupations. And we got trained in lots of different areas, and we did half-day internships in different kind of health professions in our junior and senior years of high school, and we did different rotations. And I had 2 rotations in speech language pathology, one at the VA hospital and one at the Children's Hospital. And initially, when I started high school, I thought I would go to med school, and that was my initial plan. But I fell in love with speech language pathology, and I loved it because as speech therapists, we deal with communication from birth through death. So we do the whole spectrum of life, and there's just lots of different areas of interest, whether it's working with children or adults or education or health. We do, I always say we deal with everything from the brain down to the diaphragm. And so hearing, speech, stuttering, aphasia, strokes, all those things we do. And so I like the diversity of the field, and it kind of drew me in.
Amen. Amen. Now, your education has brought you from, well, man, all across the country. I mean, Portland, Oregon, I think when the first time when we talked, I said, is it Black people in Portland? You know,
there are Black people in Portland.
And you was like, of course, you know, and then of course, you know, with that being said, I mean, you went to, you look at your background here. I mean, obviously you've learned from several different communities like Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where you was at Southern University, and of course, Columbus, Ohio, where the Ohio State is, and now Springfield, Missouri. What do you think collaboratively you've learned from each of those communities?
You know, I have a love and a passion for people. So I'm originally from Portland. Portland's not a very diverse city. I grew up with lots of white people, and I wanted to, but I also had a strong African American community in Portland, and so I'm a preacher's kid. My stepfather's.
Oh, you were PK. Okay.
PK.
All right. All right.
And we were very involved in the community in Portland. My family's church was very much engaged in a lot of outreach, did a lot of drug and alcohol outreach. And I grew up in the 80s with the whole drug, the war on drugs and the gang wars. And we did a lot with homelessness. So that really shaped a lot of my identity. But we had a very strong African-American community, but I knew I wanted to have more experience with African Americans. My family's from Los Angeles, so I spent my summers down there in California. And so I got that experience, but I needed to see some more of the US. And so I knew I wanted to go to a historically Black college. And it ended up at Southern University, where I had the best time. I loved my experience there at Southern.
I want to stop you there because my quick experience, well, I had several experiences with historically Black universities, visitations. I mean, my goal was to go to Jackson State University, home of the Sonic Boom, okay? Because I definitely wanted to go down there.
It's part of the SWAC. It's part of the SWAC conference.
It's part of the SWAC. Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I went for a college visit or football visit, I had I was hurt. I went down. I was on crutches, and so I went down there. It was a football visit, and of course met the coach, met other players. But I stayed out instead of going in the locker room with the other recruits. I stayed out on the field because I wanted to hear the
scan
Sonic
is completed.
Boom.
Click clean now to clean all found issues and records.
And so what was so funny about all of that was the fact that it put me in a position where I was like, okay, I want to join the band more than I wanted to play football.
The band groupies are a serious thing. The band groupies at a HBCU are a real deal.
It's bigger than the athletics when it really comes down to it. But there was a place in Baton Rouge, and maybe you can confirm this. It was called the Chateau. It was a little hole-in-the-wall little spot, and ate some of the best poor boy sandwiches ever.
It's called Ethel Snack Shack.
Actually, yeah, they changed the name. Exactly, that's it. Girl, that was the spot.
When my family came to my graduation from California, I took them to Ethel Snack Shack.
Yes, they changed. Oh my goodness, is it still there?
I have no idea.
No, man, I tell you, I think I was there for about a week, and I literally went there every single day. I didn't care. I wanted a po' boy. I wanted something else. I mean, anything, shrimp, this, that, I took it. And crab boil, I had it. But and I'm sorry, because I could really get off subject real quick with that. But the long story. But from those communities, places like that, I mean, you said you wanted to engage yourself more with Black communities. What were some of the things you saw in those communities?
So I had never had any real experience with the South. My family's from Los Angeles. The furthest south that I have ever been was LA, you know. And so I had no real experience with the South. And so this was my first introduction to the history and culture of Blacks in the South. You know, the identity of Blacks in different places we vary, you know, we're not a monolith. And it's one of the things that I love to observe. I think if I were to go back to school, I probably would have maybe gotten a degree in anthropology or sociology, because I love studying, observing people and how people differ in different kinds of spaces. And so going to Louisiana was a huge culture shock for me. I was this little Black girl from Portland and on this campus, and it was a transition for me, but I loved every moment of it. It was a great experience. I learned a lot about the history and culture of our people in the South, particularly Louisiana, which is kind of its own little country. There's so much diversity there in Louisiana that's different from the rest of the United States. And so it was a great learning experience. I learned a lot about, you know, discrimination and biases about people in the South. And because I love watching and learning about people, I really two of my favorite things to think about and to observe are language and food. And I think you learn a lot about
that's a good combination.
You learn a lot about people both through their language, how they use language, their speech patterns, and also through their food. And so going from Portland to Louisiana, I got some of the best food in the country is in Louisiana. But it's all different based on these little pockets. These little communities have variations of some of the same dishes, but you know, they have influences from different cultural backgrounds. And the same thing with the language. You know, you become very familiar with where people are from based on how they use their language. And that was always fascinating for me. And so
you know, you stated something, and now you take me back to this, but you stated something in your bio that was very interesting, and you said it just like this. It was said like this: her passion for youth and commitment to community drives her involvement in numerous organizations, activities, and events. You volunteer in multiple roles to facilitate social justice and equity for underserved communities, focusing on civil, social, and civic issues such as illiteracy, low literacy, education achievement gaps, homelessness and foster care, and poverty. How much of this stems from your own childhood experiences?
Huge. You know, my family, you know, I grew up, you know, as a PK, and my parents were very involved in the community. They were very vocal in the community. But one of the things that I always tell people, I definitely didn't grow up in the perfect household. We had lots of dysfunction in my household, but nonetheless, my brother and I talk about some of the things that my parents did right. We try not to focus on just the negative things, talk about the things that they did right. And one of the things that my mother did for my brother and I both is that she allowed us to have a voice as children. You know, I think there's the saying in the African American community that children should be seen and not heard. Well, in my house, we were allowed to be heard also. Not only were we allowed to be heard, my mother made it a point that we had to be aware of what was going on in the world around us. We were required to listen to the news every morning before school. And we often had conversations in our car rides or in our walks or in our movements about what was going on in the world. So she wanted us to be informed about what was happening in the world. And we had lots of conversations about that. And we talked about inequalities. We talked about discrimination. We talked about disparities. And we talked about what we could do and how our voices mattered. And I grew up having that as my foundation. And it's something that I want for other young people to have, is to know that they have a voice and that they have the opportunity to make a difference. I always knew in my household that my voice mattered and my opinion mattered, and not just in my household, but in society as a whole.
Well, that's a good point, because a lot of kids, and I do a lot of mentoring, and I find this to be a major problem. A lot of kids don't know really what discipline, or should I say order, is all about, because they are not put at the table when you're setting the rules. I've always said it's always good to put kids in the board meeting if you can, when it comes to parenting, because it gives
I
them an
love it. For
opportunity.
example, my campaign manager, Monica Horton, her daughter,
Yeah,
when they ran my campaign, her daughter Ariel was at every single one of my campaign events.
mm,
She was at the table. She was present in the debate. She was present at the fundraiser. She was present everywhere. And I love that, because she got an education, not just from me talking to her, but her being present and seeing the process and seeing what happens behind the scenes. It is something that I think we need to include kids in more of those kinds of opportunities, not after the fact, but beforehand. Let's get them involved at the beginning.
yeah, amen. Recently, and of course, you recently became a newly sworn in SPS, Springfield Public Schools board member. With your past accomplishments, why secondary education arena?
Well, it's actually primary and secondary. We do K through 12.
Okay.
So it's primary and secondary, but
Okay.
I've always had a passion for young children. Particularly since I believe education is a path toward whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you gain not just for a job or a career, but to enhance yourself, your own ability to know and do more. And there's more than one path to education. I don't think every student has to go to college, but I do think it's an opportunity that many of us should take if we have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't start at college with regards to educating children about themselves,
Right.
about the world. It has to start early. And so I think it's very important that we start as early as possible educating kids and giving them the opportunity to have those foundational skills for learning. And for me, that means literacy. They need to have those literacy skills very early on. So that's really my focus with K through 12, is
Mm-hmm.
getting kids engaged and having some strong skills with literacy and language. So language supports literacy, and literacy supports education. And so I think it's very important to work with the community to build those skills very, very early on. We can't start later. It's too late if we start in high school or college.
Right.
We got to start in the preschool, kindergarten, even before.
Right. What do you specifically, we mentioned earlier, Francine Pratt, obviously Charlotte Harden has served in these same distinguished roles with the board. What specifically do you bring to the table that you believe that your peers and your colleagues say, that's definitely Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate?
I remember when I was at Ohio State, and I think I was finishing up my master's degree, and my mother came to visit, and one of the professors said to my mother, she definitely is not afraid to speak up. And I think that's what I bring to the board. Not that it's just that I'm not afraid to speak up, but I'm willing to speak up. I'm informed about what I speak about. I don't just talk about things that I don't know about. And if I don't know, I know how to research the information to find out more about it. And I know how to ask questions. I'm a Delta, I'm in a sorority, and when we were pledging, I was the one who had lots of questions. I am not a ride or die. I want to know where we're going, how long it's going to take to get there, and all the other questions that are gonna need to be asked. So I am I'm a person who asks lots of questions, and I think that's how we become informed. So I'm willing to ask the hard questions, and I'm willing to challenge the status quo. And I bring my own background, knowledge, and experience with education and diversity and literacy to the table. And I think that's what I add to the board.
Thank you for that. Because I think a lot of people, when they saw that you came in, obviously, and let's talk about a little bit of the past. I mean, this was not your first run, and it didn't work out the way you wanted it to work out in the beginning. But as I always say, God's timing is always the best timing.
Amen.
Let's talk about that. Your faith. You went through that downfall. I don't really call it downfall. I just say, okay, maybe it just wasn't our time. What was your faith like through that? What were you dealing with?
My faith has been tried and tested, and over and over again. And even I tell the story about me even coming to Springfield. I ended up in Springfield because I was a professor at Florida State University, and I did not get tenure and promotion. And I don't know if people don't always understand what that means, but without tenure, you can't stay at the university. And so it wasn't that I didn't deserve it. I earned it, but I didn't get it. And I wasn't willing to stay there, even though there was an opportunity to stay and fight. I ended up just going on the market and looking for a job. I had lots of opportunities for a job. I interviewed at lots of different places. I ended up interviewing at Missouri State, not because I wanted to, but it just was an opportunity. I had a friend who was here, and I just kind of did it on a whim. It was not my first choice. Every single door was closed to me except for Missouri State, and I ended up here, and I wasn't happy about it. I was very angry with God for bringing me here. And
Well, I think, not to cut you off, but I think we're very glad that Missouri State had an open door for you.
Well, I'm glad about it too. It took me a while though. I spent my first year in Springfield being very angry with God. Like, why would you do this? Why would you bring me here? This is not what I wanted for my life. But he had different plans than I had. And what I quickly learned, what happened was, and this is important to me, Cheryl Clay played a huge role in this. She got me involved. It was just always been who I was. I've always been involved everywhere I've lived. But she kind of took me under her wing and said, you're going to get involved and we're going to get you connected to the community. And for me, that makes a big difference. Being in a place without being connected to the community, you'll never enjoy it. But once you care about the people and you care about the place, then it becomes meaningful and you have a purpose. And so I had a purpose here in Springfield. And so that connection, that service to the community really helped to shape my identity here and get me involved and have me to care about the people in this place. And so I started to work in the community and get involved. When I ran for school board and I did not win, I was really disappointed. However, I was ready to go back at it again because I truly believe this is a calling. I believe it's something that God has ordained for me to do. And so if it didn't happen then, I knew it would happen eventually because I had to believe this is what he had for me to do. And so I was all prepared to do it again. And circumstances happened and a seat became open before the time of an election, and I got appointed to that seat. And I'm grateful that I didn't have to campaign again because campaigning is hard and expensive. But I'm grateful for the work that we did the first time around that put me in the position to be appointed to the seat.
Well, I tell you what, Cheryl Clay is actually on right now, so I'm just going to say thank you, Cheryl, because you did a good job with keeping her here, getting her involved. Yeah, she did the same with me when I got back there. It's like, and she's like, I know your mama, and of course, we've been close for years, and she's like an auntie to me. So at the end of the day, that's what it's supposed to be about. And that kind of draws me to a different question here. I didn't expect I would ask this, but I am. Had you not been involved, you would have been considered what we like to call around here pastors. You're a pastor. You just come in, you're here for a couple of years, and you don't. Do you think that's one of the reasons why we're stagnated with the Black professional community saying, hey, this is where I want to make my home, and so on? Do you think that could be one of the reasons because they're not involved as much?
I think it's a huge problem. I think, again, I spent my first year and a half in Springfield being miserable. I spent most of my time connecting with people and talking about how much I hated Springfield. But my heart changed for Springfield when you start to be involved in the community. And you start to know the people and you care about their issues and the things that affect the people who live here and the people who come to school here and the people who work here. When you care about those people and those things, then your heart starts to change for this place. Springfield still has some challenges for me, particularly as a single woman, but at the same time, Springfield has offered me opportunities that I may not have gotten in other places. And I've connected to some really good people in Springfield who have loved on me, cared for me, pushed me, mentored me, and taught me in lots of different ways. And so I'm very grateful for the community here in Springfield. They've been really good to me and I want to give back.
Amen. Thank you for that. Now, the SPS has made leaps and bounds. In the latter few years, we've seen more inclusion. We've seen more engagement, obviously, with the Black community, African American community. Does the recent events, and I take the back, let's see here. with society moving into a new direction, does the recent events change how you teach, engage in regards to, and I want to take us back to your program in 2014, you started Ujima. Ujima is a personal program that you have put together. Does it change how you manifest that right now or no?
Absolutely not. And you know why? Because I've been committed to the plight of minority children from the beginning. And my passion and my heart for these children is to empower them, to educate them, and to connect them. And so that empowerment part comes through the kinds of activities that we do, which include diverse children's literature. The books that the children who come to Ujima get have characters and stories about people who look and sound like them, who have experiences like them. And so we tell these kids about stories, and we introduce them to literature that tells the history, the true history of stuff that they don't learn in schools. We build them up their own self-identity where they can be proud of themselves. We connect them with diverse groups of people so that they can have experiences that expand their boundaries. So what we do, it does not change because we've been committed to these ideals from the very beginning of Ujima. It's what Ujima is all about.
I came to one of your events a while back through the NAACP, and what I was so intrigued about, it was the youth was learning about the history of African Americans here, and you implemented your Ujima program through that. Have you seen those kids develop and wanting to know more from this and saying, hey, I did not know that, so now that I know that, I'm going to do that through your program?
Particularly with the Ujima program, our Ujima program, we started back in 2014. It started as a kind of a collaboration between NAACP Reed's program and one of my classes where I was trying to engage my graduate students in the opportunity to do more application work in the community. I teach diversity and literacy, but the students don't really have the opportunity to do that literacy work with diverse populations. And so we went over to Bartlett Decatur and started this program, and we kind of just snowballed from there and grew into the program that it is today. We do monthly family literacy programs, and we do a summer literacy camp. And it's a benefit both for the children who participate in Ujima, for the community, and for my students at Missouri State, who the majority of them are middle-class white females who will be going out and working with children in the future, diverse children in the future. And I want them to be culturally competent in working with diverse populations. And so, yes, my kids who have been in Ujima for a long time, they have a wealth of knowledge that they would not have gained through the public school system, that about themselves, about the culture, and about diversity as a whole, globally and locally.
Amen, amen. Now, with the changes that's been going on, obviously everyone's been learning probably more through the virtual world than anything, taking classes online. Does the Ujima, as along with other things that you're teaching, take more precedence at this moment? I mean, is there creative ways you're thinking of how you can keep communicated with these kids? I mean,
it does. I miss my babies. Our program, we have infants up through 5th grade, and we meet monthly for the family literacy nights. But last month we had to do a drive-through where we did bags, Ujima bags, where we had books for the kids and activities, and we also passed out dinners for the kids. And we're going to do that again for June and July. Usually in July, we have our literacy camp, which is a full day of camp. We partner with the Regional Arts Council. And since we won't be meeting in person, we'll be doing Ujima in a box. And we'll have all of their art supplies from the Art Council and their literacy supplies from Ujima. They'll get their boxes, and we will have the opportunity for the kids to Zoom in with their art teacher and their literacy teacher at least once per week.
Amen. I like that. Now, this kind of bring it back to what we were discussing in the beginning, even before we started recording tonight, and that was dealing with everything that's going on right now. The George Floyd situation, his death, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. How has that changed your outlook as a professional and as far as bridging this information over to your children? I mean, because I give you a great example. In the latter weeks that I was tutoring, I had more kids wanting to talk about that and here it is, I'm tutoring middle class white kids. And they say to me, well, Mr. Graves, you're Black. And I say, of course. How do you feel about it? And they started asking me these questions. I was like, wow. First of all, let me make sure their parents want me to talk to them about this. And so it was different. It was very different. But it was also a healing, because they were hearing from a Black man. It was healing. It was a healing aspect for me, because I was able to touch someone who probably wouldn't have had that opportunity to hear directly from someone of color. So how is that working with you in this moment, especially with your
Well,
program?
as far as Ujima, like I said, it doesn't change a whole lot for me. However, as far as Missouri State, my role as a professor at Missouri State, it does impact me in lots of different ways. I teach a language and diversity class online in the summer, so I'll be teaching that in July, and I also teach it seated in the fall. My field, my department is 99% middle class white girls, white females, and they often have not had a Black professor before. And so they are coming to Missouri State, and here I am. I'm going to be talking to them as their instructor both this summer and this fall about language and diversity, particularly with regards to education. And I'm having to change their minds in class about things that they have held as a belief for a long time. And it's challenging. And it's difficult because in addition to navigating the content of the course, we're also navigating this thing in real life, in real time. And I have to find ways to engage them in the discussion about what's going on outside of the four walls of our classroom, but at the same time, open up their a dialogue so that we can have a conversation. And it's tough because they many of them have not had these conversations before, but there is hope. Let me tell you a hopeful situation. I don't generally friend my current master's students while they're in the program, but when they graduate, I friend them on Facebook. And I have been very pleased to see a very large number of my former students speaking up and speaking out about racism online. And I told a few of them how proud I was of them. And several of them told me that they learned a lot from my class. And they don't always tell you that until after the fact, but they learned a lot in my class, and they were using some of the things that I taught them as a part of their platform for the things that they were saying. And I'm very, very proud of my students for speaking up and speaking out. And it makes me feel like the stuff that I'm doing is meaningful to those students at Missouri State, even if they don't always say it, because they don't.
I like that. That's good news to hear, especially with everything that's going on. Kind of talk on this a little bit. What does and if hopefully you're at liberty to answer this, but what does the classroom look like in fall of 2020, especially in Springfield Public Schools?
For Springfield Public Schools, as of right now, what I know is that we will be back in the classroom with precautions taken. But I don't know beyond that, and things could change. We live in a very uncertain time right now. Just like at Missouri State right now, we're making plans for blended classes and smaller classes and rearranging classes, but we've also been told to be prepared for the possibility of going back online. So I think at this particular moment, we are open to the possibility of being seated back in the classroom, but open also for change to happen, because that's kind of been the nature of 2020.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know if it's just because of the fear of getting back into the classroom, as one of my students had mentioned to me, or is it just a fact of change? Because some people don't like change, and they have to adjust to it. So with that being said, now we're moving forward. We're going into this new normalcy, as we would call it. Do you feel that there will be, and I asked this question to another educator, and they actually said, of course. Do you feel that the education arena is going to put more emphasis on engagement into African American studies, as far as just dealing with people? I mean, sociology is my background, and I said, man, this is an open policy here. I can see classes just being filled to the capacity. Do you feel that it's going to change that dynamic and discussion and the content back in the classroom as well?
I hope so. The reality is that I've been so broken these last few weeks that I've lost some hope, But like I told you early on before we had our conversation, that I'm trying to renew my mind and fortify my spirit so that I can stand and fight again. If I allow myself to be hopeful, then I say yes. I think COVID-19 will change how we do things in the future, and this current racial uprising will change things. I mean, yes, we have always had these racism kinds of things going on in our presence, but right now, globally, we have folks globally standing with us.
Yes, yes.
Calling for change in the United States, not just here in this country, but around the world. People are calling for change in this country. So I think that there is the opportunity for something significant to happen. I'm hoping that our educational system will make some transformations. I will be holding them accountable. I will be speaking up and asking the hard questions. I will be demanding change. But at the end of the day, it's going to be up to those who are above my pay grade to make those decisions. I do know that one of the responsibilities of the school board is with regards to governing and helping to make decisions about policy and the budget. And right now, because of COVID-19, there's going to be some significant budget cuts. And so that's going to affect maybe some of the things that we might have done otherwise. And so we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open regarding the budget. You always follow the dollars because you put your money where your mouth is. And so you put your money on the things that are most important. So we want to make sure that the things that are important to us are allocated funds from the budget.
Now, of course, you're a newly sworn in SPS board member. Being new is already pressure alone. I mean, you're going to have pressure. Everybody's looking to see what she's going to say, what she's going to do. Do you think it's even more pressure being an African-American woman?
Absolutely.
In this position?
Absolutely. I'm not an unknown variable on the school board. I've been attending meetings regularly for some time. I've been vocal in the community about lots of things. So it's not like they don't know my voice and who I am and what I stand for, but they don't know who I am and what I stand for in other kinds of ways. They've seen the public perception of the outspoken person, but I'm also a person about the business, and I want to be about the business. And so I will be there listening and learning, and I'll also be asking questions, and I'll be holding people accountable for the things that they say and do.
Well, there you get it. You're getting it. I'm sorry. There you have it, guys. This is Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate. I mean, I can say uncut. You're such an interesting person to listen to talk, but at the same time, learning your background, it has also kind of bring some things into full forefront in regards to where you come from, where you are now, and where your plans are going in the future. Because of this new normal, some people would probably want to ask this one question. If I had a problem and I'm a parent and I needed to address the particular members in the school board, how do I go about that? Because, and let me give you a reason why. Because there has been some issues in the past. I've even seen this when I was with the NAACP. And parents don't really know how to address certain issues. They'll bring it outside of SPS. And I said, well, why are you bringing the problem outside SPS? But then they said, well, there's no one to really take it to in SPS. So how do you address that? If you were telling a parent, say, this is the best way to go about it.
So there's a new director of diversity and inclusion at SPS. Her name is Ivania and Dr. Pusatero, and she is the person who will be handling a lot of those issues, particularly regarding diversity issues. But there are other issues our kids face with regards to curriculum and with regards to transportation, with regards to, lots of things happen that aren't just diversity and inclusion issues. My thing that I've been doing over the last several years is listening to families if they need me to listen, but also directing them to the right offices in SPS. I don't work for SPS. I don't make decisions about curriculum or teachings or teachers. I don't make any of those decisions, but I can be a representative to help direct them to the person who does make those decisions. And I also want to encourage parents and families to come to school board meetings. come to the school board meetings, and there are open mic opportunities for them to speak up about concerns that they have. And oftentimes we don't have families who do that. If they are afraid to do it, let me know. I will, help them figure out when to come to the meetings and how to frame their concerns. But there's an opportunity for them to speak up. I've had someone say who in the district before that they didn't think that there were any problems because no one's ever said anything. And I'm like, just because they don't say anything doesn't mean there's not any problems. They didn't say anything to you because of whatever, but I want our families to be present. I want these parents to be present at the school board meetings. I want them to be informed, and I want them to speak up at those meetings.
I can personally say that, your information, what you just said is real important to a lot of parents right now, because again, everybody don't show up to PTA meetings. Everybody don't show up to the parent-teacher conferences. And so to be able to talk to the teachers, talk to someone in a leadership role, this is very important. And sometimes I've even talked to parents where they said, one reason I don't talk to any of them is because I don't see anybody that looks like me. And that's very important. That's very important. If you had something that you could say to all those who are listening right now about your involvement in who you are and what we've talked about, could you just kind of finish with that and just give people an understanding?
I'm on the school board to be a voice to those who feel that they aren't voiceless. I want to represent the interest of the people in the community, people who look like me, people who sound like me, but all students, not just minority students, but all students. Not a lot of families feel like they are outside of the school district and don't have a voice. Like I said, both as a speech language pathologist and as a person raised by my mom, I believe everybody should have a voice, and I want people to speak up and know that their voice matters. You need to let us know what your concerns are. Come and be heard. And if you can't be heard, let me know so that we can connect you with the right people so that you can speak to the right people.
Amen. Amen.
But I'm at the table. I don't make all the decisions. I don't make any decisions. I'm a part of a team that helps to guide and govern the school district with policy and budgets and those kinds of things. But I do have a voice at the table, and I can direct you to the right people.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, listen, guys, you've heard it. This is Dr. Shurita Thomas-Tate. And of course, with that being said, you can find a rebroadcast of this interview, obviously at my website at www.live.Brotha Maze, and that's spelled BROTHAMAZE.com, and also on my YouTube channel as well. Dr. Tate, I just appreciate you showing up tonight or coming to just let our listeners know more about who you are and really who, just you. I mean,
well, I appreciate you having me.
What's that?
I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you thinking enough of me to bring me on your show.
Yes.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Well, I tell you what, I definitely going to bring you back again, obviously for a panel or just in general, bring yourself back in the near future. I'd like to kind of see where we're going to be here in a couple, 6 more months. And hopefully we're saying good things and everyone's feeling a lot better. Guys, if this is your first time listening to listen to the Live with Brotha Maze show, hey, come visit with us every week on Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern time, and that's 9 o'clock Central time. Hey, I'm your brother from another, and like I always say, I'm gonna bring you the most interesting people that's in this community and other communities. But at this moment, we're gonna say bye. I'm out. Peace.